Welcome to Marduk's Musing, episode 4, with Mario of Plutonic Planes and Dorje of Heart Astrology. So, we're here on the fourth episode, which we are going to focus this week on Mercury retrograde and early Virgo starting on August 4th. And it will retrograde out of Virgo into Leo on August 14th. And then it will go direct on August 28th. So, this episode is covering what to expect, what you might experience, what you might see in the world around you, and how to navigate successfully the Mercury retrograde August 2024. So, Mario, good to see you today. And, I'd just like to start out and, kind of see what your thoughts are on Mercury retrograde in general.
So I'll start off by saying one way to perceive these retrogrades is to always reflect back on the last retrograde, or rather the last one around this time last year. So last year we had a retrograde around September. It was August to September. And think back, reflect back what that was like for you. And that'll give you some hint of what we will be going through this retrograde here in August, September. So that and how I look at retrograde in general is that if you haven't been on point getting what you need to get done, then you're going to have to revisit some of those things during the retrograde, and it could get quite busy. But if you have been completing everything you need to complete in good order, then you can have some time for yourself. You can have some solitude, some self-care, and setting preparation for your new ventures when Mercury goes direct in August. What do you think, Dorje? What do you want to add?
Nice, nice. I love that, and that's a little bit different than how I tend to approach it. So I like the rounded out kind of conversation there. I look at Mercury retrograde as a time when you move back and you reassess what you're doing, and you're like, okay, is this working for me? Is this not? What am I throwing out? What am I keeping? Like, it's a time where you can like really just shed or molt the skin, like like a snake molts its skin. I think Mercury retrogrades are molting times where you get these where you're like, this doesn't work for me anymore. I'm not going to do it this way. Oftentimes though, that'll lead me into doing something really stupid, which you should never do during Mercury retrograde, which is like redoing my website or, like trying to upload some new features into my website, and a total disaster. Never redo your website during a Mercury retrograde. Every single time I've done that, then it's crashed. It's been like out of commission for 1 to 4 or 5 days. It's had me on the phone with GoDaddy, which is hey, GoDaddy, if you're listening, you can sponsor us, and I'll say differently next time. But GoDaddy is like the worst web company out there, so I will spend time with GoDaddy, like, on the phone, like going through with their people, and then they're going to charge me money, and it's going to take like 3 or 4 days to like fix whatever the problem is because I hit the wrong button at the wrong time, or, something like that happened. But
Your
anyways,
point,
I do like the idea in general, though, that during Mercury retrograde, you redo things.
your
Uh,
point is, well, yeah, your point. I was going to say your point was polarized because it is good to redo, but the tech part of it, right, which Mercury rules, the communication, the tech part of it wanes during this time period. As you're
it
kind of,
wanes, yeah, and not only does it wane, but it wanes in a polarized way, which is like really appropriate for Mercury because Mercury is a sign that reconciles oppositions. I mean, it's a planet that reconciles oppositions, and that's part of its motion in the sky. Is it so regularly goes retrograde, pulls between different signs, and alchemically integrates them. Like this time, it's going to alchemically integrate our experience of Virgo and our experience of Leo to help us understand better how we think and serve in terms of our true heart identity self. So you've got this like reconciliation that's coming on. And in order to do that, in order to be in the right place for it, especially when Mercury is in a Mercury ruled sign, I feel like you need to mediate. You need to step back from the mediated information that we're constantly being bombarded with by modern technology, modern corporations, the modern corporate state, which is trying to, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but and I think this is for the most part just financially motivated, control the way we think with a constant advertising of messaging. And I feel like that's really going to be strong this Mercury retrograde because we're in a US election cycle season. But even yesterday, like when I was like just doing my work and kind of like looking at the, social media a little bit while I was working, there was like 4 or 5 major themes hitting as Mercury stationed at 3 to 4 degrees Virgo. And it totally emotionally blew me off the water. And I just had to unplug. And I think that's one of the best ways to navigate a Mercury retrograde is to cut back on whatever your social media is, whatever like exposes you to the information bombardment that is coming at you from mediated companies and technologies.
Yeah, I'll say it in a different way. I'll nuance what you're saying. Solitude, self-care, and setting preparations for September. That's how I see it. In other words, like our mind is not our own. There's this constant transmission of air, right? Air is information. Air is
Mm,
what is all this like thinking, all this mentally loaded concepts and images constantly barraging us. Now that is, our mind is not our own. It's just what they're attempting to distract us with. It's like Hop
hmm
said, there is no evil. The only evil is distraction. And
hmm
distraction is something we can control.
hmm
So now that we have like the social media everywhere, means we can turn it off. But that's like self-control, self-care. If we
mm,
caring about ourselves, we can make the time to turn it off. But yeah, it's exactly what you said, man. It's increased. A lot of the outer planets are in air, and they'll be moving permanently into air, especially next year. If they're not in air, they'll be in fire. So we will be experiencing the extremes of bombardment with all these images of what is or is not going on in the world. We don't know. We're all relegated to certain places. We can't always um, have the veracity, the truth of what's going on, as best we can. But otherwise, it's going to be a lot. And the best thing to do during a Mercury retrograde is well, I liked your nuance. Your nuance was to also take account, also get, because I think I even get caught up. Because, for example, I have my website, as you were saying, so I have my website, but I don't have the website right now, but I have all the images for it. You know what I mean? I have all the content.
hmm
So it's just a matter of having it put on uh, a new, whatever, and having it put out. But now that you're saying that, I'm like, should I wait? Should I wait another month to do that? You know? Because it was a website I had before, so I was thinking, oh, it's retrograde. So, what do you think, Dorje, for people that are doing the same as us? What do you think? Should I go ahead and put it out there now? What do you think?
I would probably wait. I think, let's see. I'm going to share the screen here quickly.
Because I had
Uh,
it out before. You know what I mean? In
yeah,
retrograde, we
yeah.
talk about, revisiting things that are unfinished or that you want to reset, redo, reorganize, represent. But
Yeah,
there's
no, absolutely. So to me, there's this really sweet spot that happens when he re-enters Virgo in September, and then you get Venus in Libra, and Venus in Libra. Let's see if we can get there. Yeah, I can't quite make that. Venus in Libra will be opposed Chiron. Mercury will be opposed Saturn. So this would otherwise be a pretty good election, September 17th, but it's just devastated by this opposition to Saturn, Mercury's opposition to Saturn, and Venus's opposition to Chiron at that time. So you can't really rely on that. However, I do feel like there's a kind of like a sweet moment here where you get Venus in Libra trine Venus in Libra trine Jupiter in Gemini, and Mercury then in Virgo. That to me is a good time to kind of perhaps launch a website.
Well, that's
So
right.
around the first, second week of September, I think that's a much
September.
better area for it than coming up over the next 3 weeks. Because coming up over the next 3 weeks, we just have like this really nasty astrological weather because
Yeah.
as this Mercury's retrograde, we're gonna see Jupiter joined by Mars, and we're gonna see, and that's gonna be square Saturn.
Yeah.
And at that exact same time, like when that happens, then Venus is going to be opposed to Saturn. And so that's just some gnarly astrological weather, perhaps some of the gnarliest astrological weather of the year. Personally, I'm not looking to launch any major thing over the next 3 weeks. And in my Substack, Dorje Substack, then yesterday I mentioned that. I was like, the next 3 weeks, like just unplug, and work on yourself as much as you can. And, I mean, that might involve like consulting an astrologer like Mario or me or whoever your favorite astrologer is to see what you need to like work on. But really, like, don't push anything through over the next 3 weeks. It's not going to go great. It's
Wow.
going to be chunky weather. And I think in our next episode, we will cover like how intense that transit's going to be. But one of the things I want to say about the Mercury retrograde in Virgo is Virgo is about assimilation and refinement. So as the Mercury is retrograding in Virgo, it really is about like, what am I refining out of my life? And what am I taking into my mind? Just like you said, like, what media am I taking into my mind? And how am I refining it and digesting it? And paying attention to that process. Because I guarantee you, over this next 3 weeks, people are going to spin, and you don't want to be one of those people. And the way to not be one of those people is to take a step back and to look at what you're consuming and to just cut what isn't appropriate or right.
Beautifully said, man. Beautifully said. I mean, this is indigestion of the mind, you know?
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. That's, with some heartburn coming because that Mercury is going to retrograde into Leo, the heart.
You know, post full moon this month, I'd say around the 18th, 19th, maybe even pre, just keep things simple.
Yeah.
Just kind of pull back. It's a time of, Sirius is high in the sky shining. This is a lot of fires happening, a lot of heat. Really cool off this month and enjoy the rivers, the oceans, the lakes. Just keep things simple, keep simple plans, nothing complex. After the 28th, things will relax a little. And but during the period of especially the build up from the 15th onward, yeah, keep things really simple. Well said, Dorje. The assimilation, the refinement, and the kind of choice and discernment about what media you're subscribed to, and knowing which ones to cut, which ones to delete, because sometimes we can't help but look at things, you know what I mean? That kind of doom addiction, that
Mhm.
trying to spread around.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a little bit like the addiction. That's a really good word for it. And I mean, the social media algorithms they're geared towards getting a dopamine response.
Yeah.
And they're going into our body. It's sixth house associated with Virgo itself. Again, it's like, what are we assimilating? And then how is it affecting our soul and our heart? That's that, August 14th, 15th, when Mercury retrogrades into Leo, what you're experiencing then is like whatever you've been reviewing or eating or contemplating, and whatever's been spinning you out, then that's going into your heart. That's going into the Leo, that's going into your soul, that's going into the depths of your being. Then you got to process that, you got to assimilate that. And so like you said, like the more we're able to like kind of take care and nurture ourselves and focus with conscious intention, on what we're taking in, then the more we're going to be able to experience that as an inner moment of like soul or personal growth, soul growth. And the discovery and the revelations of our own true heart intention during that time when the Mercury is retrograding in Leo and then coming to its station direct, which should be a time of aspiration, where you're making aspirations as Mercury goes direct. Okay, this is what I'm going to move towards over the next 3 months before the next Mercury retrograde cycle and begins. So I do see that, as a pivotal moment, August 14th, August 15th, which is right when that difficult aspect is occurring. Uh, so then there's going to be a lot of revelation. There's going to be a lot of shedding. There's going to be a lot of reviewing at what's in the heart, and happening on a personal level and in the world around us. You know. So
Beautifully said. I don't even have anything to add or nuance to that except just to share a peek at a larger cycle, which is around the same time. Well, Dorje already mentioned this, so I'll just underscore it. And that's the Jupiter conjunct Mars opposing or squaring Saturn. And this is a 9-month cycle. So we're preparing for a cycle with which we're going to be constantly attempting to find balance between too much and too little, just not pushing too hard, not getting too caught up with too many ideas and too many plans, but more of a step by step, more of a balance that we'll have to work out, because things are going to seem too good, too soon, too quick with Jupiter, and Saturn will help us kind of refocus, reset, balance, and go step by step. But depends
yeah,
who
yeah,
depends who we're, you know, who we're being.
yeah. So that's an interesting take on the Saturn Jupiter square because that does stay with us for 9 months. As Jupiter then retrogrades and Saturn is retrograde, and then Jupiter goes direct, and then Saturn goes direct. We have this like whole dance between the two, and I really like how you nuanced that into the idea of finding the balance point between too much and too little, too much possibility and too much restriction. And do you fall into like restricting yourself, or do you fall into over expansion? I think the tendency there is going to be people going into over expansion because that Saturn is in a Jupiter ruled sign. So I think that despite that the Saturn is overcoming Jupiter and that the Saturn is the first to the midheaven, kind of in the cycle of things there. I do feel though that Jupiter has the advantage of that.
Mm.
And so there's this kind of like, I think maybe skillful work of like whatever your intentions you set during this retrograde, whatever you let go of, and then the intentions you set is going to be part of um, hopes, aspirations, and ideals that you want to create. And then what are the practical steps, which Virgo term, practical steps? What are the practical steps to laying a foundation within these boundless ideas that come at you over the next 6, 9 months? What do you think?
Well said. I mean, it sounds like organization and refinement
Hmm.
is the key this month, to kind of maybe sit down and delineate for yourself and discern what are your primary goals, what is it you really want to do, and then
Yeah.
have that there as your grounding, so that once Jupiter and Saturn get going, are you straying too far? Are you following these goals through? Are you getting caught up in some other venture? Are you getting lost in this or that? Because that's going to be the energy. If
Yep.
Jupiter is having the advantage here, then there's going to be too many ideas, too many, or rather, I should say, too many seeming opportunities, and seeming big possible plans or ideas that could go this way or that way that can seem very exciting and overwhelming. And really, they may not be, and it'll depend wherever Jupiter and Saturn are scoring in our charts, it'll be
Yeah, yeah.
out. And so it'll be in a different part of life for all of us, but it'll be the same. There'll be a part of us that wants to really expand and explode something, I can really have this or get this done. And the other
Hmm.
part of it will be, well, is it realistic? And will it work within my schedule, my plans, my goals? Is it reasonable? Is it something I can handle that's correct?
Hmm.
Then, as you noted, man, like, really, let's pull it back to where we are right now. Discernment of the heart, refinement of our true goals. And where do we find that? We find that in coming back to ourselves and grounding into our own hearts, in our own being. So I think we should leave it there for this month and really take this time to have self-care and to really be conscious about what we're putting into our bodies in every way.
Beautiful. Well, I don't think there's anything to add to that. And I think that's the perfect note to end this particular episode of Marduk's Musing on. Um, in the next week or the week following, then really like looking forward to the episode where we go into detail on that particular Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, Venus figuration that's going to be arising. Thank you very much, Mario. This again, Marduk's Musing. Mario of Plutonic Planes. You can find that on YouTube, and that's where you can find out how to reach out to him for a reading. You might not know this if this is like, if you're listening to this on my YouTube channel or if you're listening to this on Apple Tunes, but Mario is unique in that he's a master of Western astrology and human design. So he's really able to work with people. And I just like to like end the episode on that note that reach out to him by email or contact him on his channels and connect with him, especially if you have any questions about the integration of human design and Western astrology for living a life well lived. Yeah.
Well,
Thank you, Mario, for joining.
thanks for that, Dorje. And don't forget to check out Dorje and Hard Astrology.
Okay, peace out. And you guys take care, be calm, unplug as much as you can, and center yourselves during this Mercury retrograde. Have a great day.
All right, thanks so much, man. See you guys.